Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Gopi Janavallabha Girivardhari Jaya Gopi Jana Jaya Gopi Janavallabha Girivardhari Jaya Yashodanandana Praja Janaranjana Yashodanandana Praja Janaranjana Yamuna Tiva Vanachavi Yamuna Tiva Vanachavi Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivardhari Jaya Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivardhari Yashodanandana Braja Janaranjana Yashodanandana Braja Janaranjana Yamuna Tiva Vanachavi Yamuna Tiva Vanachavi Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivardhari Jaya Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivardhari Yashodanandana Braja Janaranjana Yashodanandana Braja Janaranjana Yamuna Tiva Vanachavi Yamuna Tiva Vanachavi Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Jaya Prabhupada, 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 Jaya Prabhupada. Jaya Jaya Prabhupada, 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 Jaya Jaya Prabhupada. Nitai Go Haribo, 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 Nitai Gora Haribo. Yo, Mr. Paparamhamsa Pravachakacharya Stotra Sata Shishin Devangis Abhaychan Bhakti Swami Shil Prabhupada Ki Jai. Iskan Founder Charya Devangis Shil Prabhupada Ki Jai. Yo, Mr. Paparamhamsa Pravachakacharya Stotra Sata Shishin Devangis Shil Bhakti Swami Shil Prabhupada Ki Jai. Ananda Kori Vaishnava Ki Jai. Namachar Shil Hridasta Ko Ki Jai. Prem Se Ko Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shri Gaur Bhaktan Ki Jai. Shri Shri Radha Krishna Govinda Sham Kunda Radha Kunda Giru Govardhan Ki Jai. वृंदावन धाम की जय, नवद्वीप धाम की जय, मायापुर धाम की जय, गंगा माई की जय, यमुना माई की जय, भक्त देवी की जय, तुलसी देवी की जय, समवेत भक्तवृंद की जय, करंतराज नेक्टर डिवोशन की जय, निताय गो ब्रह्मानंदे. All glories to the same of the bodies. All glories to the same of the bodies. All glories to the same of the bodies. All glories, Shri Guru and Shri Gauranga. All glories to the Prabhupada ki jai. Let us repeat the invocation. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. So welcome to Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu Nectar Devotion, Chapter 37. Let us repeat the wonderful glorification of the six Goswamis. Nana Shastra Vicharaneka Nipuno Saddharma Samstapako Lokanam Hitakarino Tribhuvane Manyo Sharanyakaro Radha Krishna Padaravinda Bhajana Nandena Mataliko Vande Rupa Sanatano Raghuyugo Shri Jiva Gopalako Shri Jiva Gopalako. Offer my respectful obeisance unto the six Goswamis, namely Shri Sanatan Goswami, Shri Rupa Goswami, Shri Raghunath Bhatt Goswami, Shri Raghunath Das Goswami, Shri Jiva Goswami, and Shri Gopal Bhatt Goswami, who are very expert in scrutinizingly studying all the revealed scriptures with the aim of establishing religious principles for the benefit of all human beings. Thus, they are honored all over the three worlds, and they are worth taking shelter because they absorb in the mood of the gopis and are engaged in the transcendental loving service of Radha and Krishna. Shri Sad Goswami Prabhu's Ki Jai. So this chapter 37, is entitled Impetuses for Krishna's Service. So I just wanted to do this slide first, and then we'll recap, or we'll start with that chapter. So, impetus for Krishna's service. In sadhana bhakti, we find that the impetuses may match similar to those that we're going to be discussing in chapter 37. Although in chapter 37, the impetuses for Krishna's service is on the level of pure devotional service. It's beyond anartha nivritti. It's at a stage entering into prema and different levels of prema. So the impetuses, there may be similar ones, but naturally on a totally different level of interacting with Krishna and the devotee that inspires greater surrender from the heart, greater affection, greater priti, greater attraction to Krishna. And you find that in sadhana bhakti, we also have different impetuses for service. For example, the pure devotees like Srila Prabhupada. Srila Prabhupada, his life example, his teachings, his lectures, his videos, they inspire service to Krishna. They inspire one to surrender to Krishna. The philosophy of Bhagavad Gita. When one studies the Bhagavad Gita, when one studies the Vedic scriptures, Srimad Bhagavatam, it inspires one to surrender to Krishna. When one congregates and prays to the Supreme Lord, that inspires one to serve Krishna. If we look at the deity form, the pictures of Krishna and his devotees, this also inspires service to Krishna. So there's also different situations, incidents, events in our lives and in the lives of other devotees that inspires one to surrender to Krishna. We find when we hear how devotees come to Krishna consciousness, just by hearing how devotees come to Krishna consciousness and how they transform from their old bad ways and bad habits to acquiring Krishna conscious habits, and their whole life changes. When we hear that, it really inspires us to surrender. When we hear pure devotees and other devotees having different experiences in Krishna consciousness, that also inspires. And Srila Jiva Goswami also says that even diseases is the living entity's best friend. So even negative situations can inspire one to surrender more and more to Krishna. So there are many situations, events, and aspects of bhakti that are impetuses for Krishna's service. So this chapter starts off with Srila Rupa Goswami describing different impetuses both for reverential servitude and spontaneous servitude. And he also is going to discuss different symptoms, different sattvika bhavas, and gives examples throughout the chapter. And as we mentioned, naturally this chapter is beyond my realization because it is on the level of pure devotional service. So we simply reading through and explaining some aspects very briefly, but really it's about associating with these second part chapters from the second part of Nectar of Devotion. So Vibhava, Ashra Dharana, udipans, impetuses unique to reverential servitude. And it is mentioned that the causeless mercy of Krishna, the dust of his lotus feet, his prasad association mm, with his devotees are some impetuses towards a devotee's engagement in transcendental loving service. I mentioned many different types of impetuses, forgot the most important one. Prasadam, mm, chanting Hare Krishna and Prasadam is also a powerful medium for inspiring. If you really feed, you see how Prabhupada in the early days, he really fed the devotees so wonderful prasadam, sumptuous prasadam. And that naturally, because it's cooked with uh, you know great devotion and offered with great devotion, then when one eats that prasadam, there is bhakti shakti, there is the potency of service, pure devotional service in that offering. And when one consumes that, he's not just consuming for his physical benefit, but it also is beneficial for the soul, increasing one's devotion. So, example of causeless mercy. Bhishma Dev said, "My dear Kripacharya, just see the wonderful causeless mercy of Lord Krishna. I have so many disqualifications, and yet the Lord is still so kind that He has come to see me at the last point of my life. He is so merciful that He has come to see an abominable person like me." So we find that when we recognize our shortcomings, humility means to accept and recognize one's shortcomings, that really on our own, we don't have the ability, the potency. Uh, really, we are totally disqualified. And when we recognize in so many ways Krishna has been giving us mercy and continues to give us mercy, then this uh, recognition that Krishna has come in so many different ways due to his causeless mercy and giving us this mercy, even though we are totally disqualified, just like Bhishmadev is recognizing here, even though he's a Mahajan, but out of humility, this is a natural, spontaneous realization coming from his heart that yes, it is all the mercy of Krishna. Then impetuses that also stimulate devotees of other rasas. So sometimes the vibration of Lord Krishna's flute, his bugling, his smiling, his footmarks on the ground, the transcendental fragrance of his body, and the appearance of a new cloud in the sky also becomes impetuses for ecstatic love of Krishna, love for him. When you go see the deities, and as soon as you enter the temple, sometimes the fragrance of the incense, as soon as it enters the nostrils, immediately it's transcendental, it impacts one's consciousness. So we should not underestimate all the wonderful aspects that are there in Krishna consciousness. Every aspect of the process of bhakti becomes a wonderful impetus, stimulant to increase one's attachment, to increase one's remembrance and love for the Supreme Personality of Godhead. That is basically Vrindavan. It is the world where everything, every aspect is there simply to increase and intensify one's attachment and love for Krishna. So, the example of a flute. When Krishna was playing his flute on his flute, Baladev very anxiously declared, "Just see how, after hearing the transcendental sound of Krishna's flute, Indra, the king of heaven, is crying in his heavenly kingdom, and from his teardrops falling on the ground, Vrindavan appears to have become a celestial residence for the demigods." So when Krishna blows his flute, naturally we know that he mesmerizes everyone, including the demigods. His flute playing is super transcendental. And we know that Lord Krishna appears in this world as Lord Chaitanya, Mahaprabhu. And the flute appears as Balaram, as the Mardanga. And that Mardanga, Balaram Mardanga, uh, that is the flute. So when Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, Wood Lord Nityananda is playing with the associates in Kirtan, the Mardanga, then that Mardanga also resounding really inspires, stimulates pure devotional service. It is not ordinary, beating of ordinary drum. The sound that's coming from a mridanga is actually transcendental sound that inspires devotion. Then there's anubhav, or manifestation of ecstasy, unique ecstasy, unique to reverential servitude. Ecstatic love for Krishna, which is known as anubhav, is symptomized by the following signs. One becomes engaged exclusively in the service of the Lord, being attentive to carry out the orders of the Lord faithfully. One becomes undisturbed and non envious in full transcendental loving service to the Lord. And one makes friendship with the devotees of the Lord who are situated in faithful service to Him. So, this is a very wonderful summary of the symptoms of someone who's on this very exalted level of ecstatic love, and its symptoms that we can aspire for in sadhana bhakti. That one is engaged exclusively in the service of the Lord. One pointed, vyavasatmaka, eke kuru nandana, vyavasatmaka buddha, that one's intelligence is one focused on the service of the Lord. Then being attentive to carrying out the orders of the Lord faithfully. So not only are we exclusively engaged, but we're also very attentive in how we're carrying out our service. And one is not disturbed by the environment, and one is non-envious in full surrender, full loving service to Krishna. And also one makes friendship with the devotee. So very wonderful qualities that we can imbibe as we're progressing, because these qualities are really qualities that are there in someone who's a pure devotee, which means if we imbibe this mood, then this is very favorable for the path of bhakti. So example of exclusive and attentive service. While feigning Krishna, Daruka condemned his ecstatic tears because they interfered with his service. So here we see pure devotees are not really interested in the ecstatic symptoms that manifest. In fact, they very often look at it as disturbing factors. It may block their vision of seeing Krishna or impede their services to Krishna. So they're really not interested in ecstatic symptoms because the essence is pure devotional service. Then manifestation of ecstasy shared with other rasas. Dancing, nrityam, is one anubhav that Sambrava Priti Ras shares with other rasas. Srila Rupa Goswami gives two examples of dancing. The first is Shrutadev, who became so overwhelmed with the joy of seeing Krishna that he began dancing with both arms raised above his head. So dancing is also one of the symptoms of ecstasy. Is explained in sadhana bhakti. When the soul's happy, that happiness is projected through to the physical plane through the material body, and in the form of dancing. Sattvika bhavas. All 8 sattvika bhavas can manifest in reverential servitude. Srila Prabhupada mentions an example of for tears, ashru, and faltering voice, swa rabeda. After surrendering everything unto the lotus feet of Vamanadev, Balimaj immediately caught hold of the lotus feet of the Lord, pressed them to his heart. Being overwhelmed with joy, he manifested all the symptoms of ecstatic love, with tears in his eyes and a faltering voice. Vyabhichari bhav, in meeting and in separation. Srila Goswami lists 24 Vyabhichari bhavs appropriate for reverential servitude. So these are ecstatic symptoms, and some of these ecstatic symptoms are, you would think they very strange. They don't seem like symptoms of ecstasy, but they are. In such expression of ecstatic love, there are many other subsidiary symptoms such as jubilation, withering, silence, disappointment, moroseness, reverence, thoughtfulness, remembrance, doubtfulness, confidence, eagerness, indifference, restlessness, impudence, shyness, inertness, illusion, madness, ghastliness, contemplation, dreaming, disease, and a sign of death. When a devotee meets Krishna, there are symptoms of jubilation, pride, and perseverance. And when he is feeling great separation from Krishna, the symptoms of ghastliness, disease, and a sign of death become prominent. Some of the 24 Vyabhachari is appropriate when meeting with Krishna, and others are appropriate in separation from Krishna. Srila Prabhupada explains, quote, when a devotee meets Krishna, there are symptoms of jubilation, pride, and perseverance. And when he is feeling separation from Krishna, then the symptoms of ghastliness, disease, and sign of death become prominent. So, example of jubilation in meeting, when Lord Krishna returned from the battlefield of Kurukshetra to his home at Dwarka, all the residents of Dwarka began to talk with him as a child talks lovingly to his father after the father's return from foreign countries. So these are all different symptoms in the spiritual world. When one is in love with Krishna, then all the symptoms, all the emotions that people feel in this material world, they have to exist in the spiritual world, because the material world is a perverted, diametrically, it's perverted and diametrically opposite to the spiritual world. So whatever emotions exist here exist there, but in the spiritual world, it's existing as servants. They exist simply to serve uh, Krishna's desire and to increase his pleasure. So, all these qualities, even though a devotee may be experiencing them externally, it may seem like unwanted, but actually, internally, he's experiencing the greatest pleasure in relation to Krishna. Examples of depression and disparagement in separation. My dear Lord, as the sun evaporates all water on the ground by its scorching heat, so my mental state has dried away the luster of my face and body due to separation from you. This is an example of depression, Vishada. Indra said, my dear sun god, your sunshine is very glorious because it reaches the lotus feet of Lord Krishna, the master of the Yadu dynasty. I have thousands of eyes, but they have they have proved to be useless because not even for a moment are they able to see the lotus feet of the Lord. This is an example of self disparagement, Nirveda. What's interesting is many of these prayers in these different symptoms of ecstasy on the material plane, they're also very instructive, because it's revealing specific traits that we can also understand. We find even in all the prayers of the songs that Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur has written, and Srila Narottam Das Thakur has written. In those songs, we find so much humility, so much depth in the proper mood that one should have in the practice of bhakti. Like here, we find Indra. Indra, he is understanding that if his eyes are not used in seeing the lotus feet of Krishna, then no matter how many eyes you have, or even if you have divine eyes, they're basically useless. But simply using everything, all our senses in the service of Krishna, that makes those senses perfect. Staibhav, Sambhrava Priti Rati is the staibhav of reverential servitude. It has two components. One is awareness of Krishna's supremacy and anxious eagerness to serve him. So these are emotions and feelings that are constant in devotees who are serving in this category of reverential servitude. That is awareness of Krishna's supremacy and anxious eagerness to serve him. Very wonderful qualities. If we analyze Srimad Bhagavatam, the whole of Srimad Bhagavatam, all first 9 cantos of the Srimad Bhagavatam, they are there to establish the supremacy of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, to establish him as Abhigna and Swarat, all cognition and completely independent. He is the all supreme powerful personality of Godhead. And as we go through the different cantos and we hear about how Krishna controls, how Krishna creates, how Krishna protects in so many pastimes, then this creates an awareness of Krishna as the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And this awareness and understanding of Krishna, this allows us to surrender, to develop a desire that, yes, Krishna is so wonderful, Krishna is so powerful, Krishna is so glorious, and I'm part and parcel of Krishna. Therefore, I should surrender to Krishna in service. So that's the first quality that's there already as the basis, as the staibav. Then anxious eagerness to serve. Once we understand Krishna's position, and that's the quality, that's the natural position of the living entity in that he develops humility, he becomes humble. Humble means recognizing Krishna's position and recognizing our position. So then when we recognize Krishna's supreme position, then the natural consequence is you want to serve. But not just, yes, I like to serve, but the eagerness, the anxious eagerness to serve. You greedy for that service, you desperate, you want that service, and that becomes the path, or that opens the path of you engaging in devotional service. And as you engage more and more in devotional service, becoming purified, ultimately then one achieves perfection. So at this stage of perfection, these two qualities or components are still there, and they naturally intensify. There is no limit to the degree or intensity that they can be, that one can accomplish in these two different components. Awareness of Krishna's supremacy causes the devotee to develop respectful humility, the main character trait of a reverential servant. Prabhuta Gnana is the Sanskrit term for this awareness that Krishna is my Lord and Master. And we find how Prabhupada introduced it. For example, every time you enter into the temple, what you do, you bow down. Why? You're recognizing Krishna is my Lord and Master. So, in so many ways, we're recognizing Krishna as the Supreme Personality of God. When we're chanting Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, we are praying, oh my Lord, oh energy of the Lord, please engage me in your service. We're recognizing Krishna, Radha and Krishna, they my masters, and I'm a servant. Anxious eagerness to serve Krishna causes one to think, how shall I serve Krishna? How shall I utilize everything in his service? These two elements combine to produce Sambrava Pritirati, which mixed with the appropriate bhavas and heightens into relishable Sambrama Priti Ras. So, very, very important uh, characteristics and components of a devotee engaged in the service of the Supreme Personality of Godhead in reverential attitude. An example of this, first example illustrates both the principle of Sambrahma Priti Rati, awareness of Krishna's supremacy and eagerness to serve him, see him and serve him. Akrura says, because I am going to see Lord Krishna today, all the symptoms of auspiciousness have already been killed. Sorry, because I am going to see Lord Krishna today, all symptoms of inauspiciousness have already been killed. My life is now successful because I shall be able to offer my respects unto the lotus feet of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. The stages of prema in reverential servitude. Prema has different stages. Prema, Sneha, Raga, Pranaya, and so forth. Sambrahma Priti Rati can heighten to Prema, Sneha, and Raga, but cannot go past Raga. So there are different levels of Prema. We know that there are the 9 stages, starting with Shraddha, ending up with Prem. But then after Prema, there are different other stages, increasing in intensity, starting with Sneha, Raga, Pranaya, going right up to Mahabhav. So these different stages, they are acquired by devotees at different stages of perfection. So those in reverential servitude, they can only acquire the first 3 levels, Prema, Sneha, and Raga. They can't go beyond Raga because they attitude is uh, infused with reverential servitude. Srila Prabhupada explains, reverential devotion for the Lord gradually increases and transforms itself into ecstatic love, prema, then affection, sneha, and then attachment, raga. So these are three traits, qualities that are there, that are prominent in such devotees. And again, we can also try to acquire, uh, in sadhana bhakti, prema means doing whatever pleases Krishna. Then affection, becoming affectionate, developing those sentiments, and becoming attached. And as we practice the process of bhakti, the heart will become more and more purified, and these symptoms will slowly begin to manifest at different stages and become more and more intense, become more and more free from mundane motives, become completely pure, and then ultimately at the stage of prema, they begin to blossom into uh, pure qualities that really attract Krishna's love. When one attains prema, one's love for Krishna never wavers or diminishes for an instant, even if it has good reason to do so. Srila Prabhupada explains, when there is no diminishing of this ecstatic love, and when it is freed from all kinds of doubt, the devotee has reached the stage called steady love for Krishna. So the quality or the trait of becoming free from doubt, what stops us from surrendering to the Supreme Personality of Godhead, uh, is that we may have doubts. And therefore, in Bhagavad Gita, Krishna tells Arjuna that we should slay these doubts with the weapon of knowledge. And by slaying these doubts, then it opens the pathway of greater surrender, greater commitment, greater dedication, and uh, greater intensification of our love. Here we find that one of the traits of someone at this exalted level of prema is that their love does not waver, it does not diminish for an instant. That means it's increasing. And even if there may be reasons for it to diminish, it does not. That means the devotees, pure devotees, they never give up the service of Krishna. If one is practicing devotional service and gives up, that means he's not on the pure level of bhakti. On the level of pure devotional service, there is no turning back, there is no giving up the service of Krishna. Example of prema, Bali Maharaj said, "My dear Lord Krishna, whether you give me the opportunity to enjoy all the yogic perfections or put me into the most abominable condition of hellish life, I shall never be disturbed." This illustrates how prema never diminishes in any condition. So, a very wonderful example of Bali Maharaj. That a pure devotee, even though apparently it may seem that the situations are negative, there are reversals in his life, it seems unfair, but the pure devotee's heart is 100% sold out to Krishna. He never ever doubts Krishna. He never ever wants to leave Krishna. Mm. So this is the wonderful quality of prema. Lord Krishna told Uddhava, "My dear friend, how can I express the glorious characteristics of Bali Maharaj, the son of Virochana? Although the king of the Suras, demigods, was cursed by this son of Virochana, and although I cheated him in my incarnation as Vamana, taking away his dominion throughout the universe, and although I still criticized him for not fulfilling his promise, I have just now seen in him in his kingdom, and he's feelingly expressed, his love for me." So, in spite of all the troubles Krishna put him through, Bali Maharaj still loved Krishna without the slightest wavering or diminishing of intensity. This is the character of Prem. So, we can be inspired in our life. There will be trials and tribulations, there will be ups and downs. But the ups and downs both should increase, intensify our attachment to Krishna. Naturally, in the beginning stages, we always want more ups and less down. We prefer only ups, but the material world does not cater for only ups. It caters for ups and downs, and in most cases, more downs than ups. So, therefore, we have to very quickly remove our doubts, understand our relationship with Krishna, accept that. Do not fight that. Accept that. This is my nature. This is constitutionally who I am, just like a fish out of water. If the fish recognizes my constitution is to be in the ocean, why I'm trying to get out of the ocean and be on the land? I should just be in the ocean. As soon as I'm in the ocean, I'll be happy. So as soon as I surrender to the lotus feet of Krishna, that is my position. That is my perfection. That is where I'll be happy. When one accepts that, then on that path of determination, there is no looking back. Sneha. The distinguishing character of Sneha are the heart melts and one cannot withstand even a moment of separation from Krishna. Srila Prabhupada says, when such a feeling of love becomes intensified, it is called affection. In that affectional stage, one cannot bear separation from Krishna even for a moment. So, two wonderful qualities of Sneha. The heart melts, and we find that, as you mentioned, in the path of sadhana bhakti, this is really what uh, we aspire for. This is our desire, that our stone like heart becomes melted when we chant the holy name, when we serve Krishna, when we in contact with any path of the process of bhakti, when we associate with devotees. It needs to stir the heart. And we cannot we cannot withstand, we cannot bear tolerate even a moment of separation of Krishna. We find that the gopis, they really exemplify this on the highest level, that even just the blinking of their eyes, mm, they did not approve. Just moments, seconds. So just consider how much love they have for Krishna, that greed, that intensity, that even for moments they do not want to be separated from Krishna. So we have in sadhana bhakti, we can aspire, we can understand that yes, I can go with days and days not really desiring to serve Krishna, or sometimes if somebody's struggling, let's say they don't chant for days. Mm. And that could also be an impetus to just see how fallen I am. I really need to improve. I really need to, get my act together. So that can also be an impetus to become stronger and stronger when one recognizes his shortcomings. So, example of Sneha, my dear Dharuka, when you become like wood because of your separation from Krishna, it is not so wonderful. This snare's second characteristic, inability to withstand even a moment of separation. Or this snare's second characteristic. When he saw Lord Krishna, his eyes filled with tears, and a river, and created a river which flowed down towards the sea of Krishna to offer tribute, as a wife offers tribute to her husband. When his body erupted with goose pimples, he appeared like the Kadamba flower. This illustrates Sneha's first characteristic, a melted heart. Then, third characteristic or third stage of prema, raga. Srila Prabhupada translates Srila Rupa Goswami's definition of raga in Chaitanya Charitamrita, that stage at which affection for the beloved converts unhappiness into happiness is called rag or attachment. When one has such attraction for Krishna, he can give up his own life to satisfy his beloved Krishna. So at rag, there is great attachment, insane attachment to Krishna. One is insanely attached to Krishna. That one is more attached to Krishna than one's own life. We find in the material world, we are more attached to our life than anything else. We would fight for survival. We would kill for survival. This is the material world. But in the spiritual world, on the level of prema, on the level of rag, the devotees, pure devotees of the Lord, they will give up their life very, very easily
uh, for the attachment and the love and the satisfaction of Krishna. They love Krishna more than their own life and themselves. Meeting with Krishna converts even the greatest distress into happiness. Separation from Krishna converts even the greatest happiness into distress. And one is prepared to give up his life. These are the characteristics of Raga. Srila Prabhupada summarizes: when affection is symptomized by direct happiness and distress, it is called attraction, Raga. In such an attracted state of ecstatic love, one can face all kinds of disadvantages calmly. Even at the risk of death, such a devotee is never bereft over the transcendent loving service of Lord Krishna. So, when we on the path of bhakti, we can measure that as I'm progressing on this path of devotional service, and when uh, obstacles appear, when there is disadvantage situations, am I am I embracing those situations calmly, or am I becoming more disturbed? Ideally, I should be embracing those disadvantage situations, uh, discouraging situations, uncalled for, unwanted situations with a sober, calm mind and consciousness. I should understand it first through Shastra Chakshu. I should see through the eye of scripture. And I should also understand it that these are temporary ups and downs. Therefore, in Bhagavad Gita, Krishna tells Arjuna also, Matras Pashas to Kauntaya, Shitoshna Sukha Dukkada, that one should tolerate these situations, just like tolerating winter and summer seasons. They come and go, so we don't really become disturbed. Mm. So even at the risk of death, such a devotee is never bereft of the service of transcendental service of the Lord. Examples of raga: the conditions surrounding Maj Parikshit's impending death were all distressful, but meeting the Lord through the hearing process converted all this distress into joy. Srila Prabhupada explains. A glorious example of this ecstatic love was exhibited by King Parikshit when he was at the point of death. Although he was bereft of his entire kingdom, which spread all over the world, and although he was accepting not even a drop of water in the 7 days remaining to him, because he was engaged in hearing the transcendental pastimes of the Lord from Sukadeva Goswami, he was not the least distressed. On the contrary, he was feeling direct transcendental ecstatic joy in association with Sukadeva Goswami. So beautiful example. Maj Parikshit was on the verge of death. There is no more greater painful situation than death. Death is the most painful situation because it's really separating the body from the soul, and very, very excruciating, very, very painful. So when one and here Maj Parikshit's example is beautiful because he's hearing Krishna constantly for 7 days, 7 nights, non-stop. So the more we hear about Krishna, the more we absorb our mind, our consciousness, our senses in the service of Krishna, the more we Krishnatize mm, every part of our life, every part of our being, every part of our intelligence, of our mind, of our senses, then uh, we will not experience the distress of this world, right? Even up to the point of death. Death will not be disturbing us. Externally, it may seem like there's a disturbance, but actually, internally, uh, it will uh, it will be, as Prabhupada says, we will address it very calmly, like the ocean. The deeper you go, the more stable it is, the more fixed it is. On the top, there may be waves, tsunamis, large waves, and it seems like the ocean is disturbed. But the deeper you go, you find that the ocean is absolutely calm. It's not disturbed at all. So a devotee is very deep in bhakti, in love for Krishna. And because he's swimming very deep, then he is not disturbed by these temporary external situations. Another example: if a drop of Lord Krishna's mercy can be bestowed upon me, then I shall feel completely carefree, even in the midst of a fire or an ocean. But if I become bereft of his causeless mercy, then even if I become the king of Dwarka, I would be simply an object for pinpricks. Beautiful prayer, beautiful example that a devotee is realizing that my relationship, my natural position is to get Krishna's mercy, to be with Krishna. And if I don't get that mercy, even if I become the king of Dwarka, very exalted, very opulent position, mm, still I will simply be an object for pinpricks. That means I will experience pain, I will experience distress, I will experience the pinpricks of this, uh, of the nature of separation from Krishna. Srila Prabhupada explains in this material world, there's always a pinprick. Something will go wrong. It's the nature of this material world. Why? Because this material nature is designed, or people in this material world, they want to be separated from Krishna. They are here because they don't want Krishna. Therefore, there will always be pinpricks. We want to change that. We want to reverse that situation. And how do we reverse it? By following these great, exalted, pure devotees that are uh, totally absorbed in serving Krishna. Then the various stages achieved by various servants are described. There are four types of reverential servants. The and this was also discussed in the previous chapter. Akrita, Ashrita, Parishad, and Anuga can attain different levels of prem. So the Akrita demigods and Ashrita, surrendered soul, can achieve up to prema. The Parishad, personal ministers, and the Anuga, intimate followers, can achieve up to the level of Rag. So remember, we are going from neutrality, or you could say we went from the beginning of Nectar devotion. We started, even if you go back further, Nectar of instruction, or Sri Shopanishad, and you can even go further, Bhagavad Gita, the preliminary study. So it starts with, I'm not this body. And then we continue advancing Sri Shopanishad, understanding the Ishavasa principle. Then we continue understanding Nectar devotion, the 11 wonderful verses that guide us from Vacha Vegam, controlling the urges, right up to understanding the glorious position of the pure devotees of Raja. And then we enter into Nectar devotion, understanding the characteristics of pure devotional service, and the different waves and of pure devotional service. And then we start embracing the path of devotional service seriously with the 64 lumps of practice of bhakti. And as we progress, we then come to achieving neutrality, and then we go further. We come to dasya, and that's the level we are discussing now. Different types of servants of Krishna. Those that are in the category of the demigods and surrendered soul, they can achieve up to prema. And then those who are more exalted, the parishads and the anuga, they can now go to raga. Okay, at raga, a trace of friendship, sakya, can appear in devotees' reverential servitude, because it's closer to the door of friendship, sakya, which is what we're going to discuss going forward into the future chapters. So a trace of friendship slowly begins to uh, evolve, emits. Srila Prabhupada explains devotees such as Maj Parikshit and Uddhava are all situated in ecstatic attraction on the basis of affection. And in that state of affection, a feeling of friendship becomes manifest. Reverential servitude in separation. The anubhavas of reverential servitude in separation. In this state of love, one is constantly fixed with his mind at the lotus feet of the Lord. A devotee in this state becomes very eager to learn the transcendental qualities of the Lord. The most important business of such a devotee is attaining the association of the Lord. Two types of separation. According to Sanskrit poetics, there are two types of separation: utkanti, utkantitva and viyoga. Utkantitva is longing to meet Krishna for the first time, and Viyoga is a desire for union with Lord Krishna. Utkantitva, longing, longing to see Lord Krishna. King Ishvaku becomes attached to anything that resembles Krishna, such as a black cloud whose color resembles Krishna, a black deer whose name, Krishna Sara, resembles Krishna, and to the lotus flower whose beauty resembles Krishna's eyes. So in the spiritual world, there is uh, there's attraction and separation, there's union and there's separation. The devotees uh, are coming to meet and serve Krishna, and then they're separated. And we find all the devotees experiences. In the evening, Krishna is meeting the gopis, then he's separated. During the day, he meets the coward boys, and then in the evening, they become separated from him. Similarly, Mother Yashoda, when Krishna goes to the forest herding the cows, then she becomes separated from Krishna. So, like this, all the devotees they experience these two types of love, union and separation, and both intensify. Both is blissful. Both intensify Krishna's love. Mm. So here we find even devotees who are in this level of reverential servitude, when they see different aspects related to Krishna, it reminds them of Krishna, his color, uh, Krishna's his eyes. So different aspects of Krishna's bodily features. When they see the material world, when they see this in the spiritual world, when they see anything that resembles Krishna, it incites, it increases their longing. Another example of Utkantitva is Akrura, who desired to perfect his eyes by seeing Krishna for the first time. 8 Vyabhachari bhavas are appropriate for reverential servitude in Utkantitva, and these are listed. Uh, Utsarya, eagerness. In Krishna Karanamrita, written by Bivamangu Thakur, there is this expression of eagerness in ecstatic love. How miserable it is, my dear Krishna, O friend of the hopeless, O merciful Lord, how can I pass these thankless days without seeing you? A similar statement was expressed by Uddhava when he wrote a letter to Krishna. Then there is Dainya, humility. My dear Lord, you are the ocean of mercy. With my arms placed upon my head, I am bowing down before you with all humility and sincerity. I am praying unto you, my Lord. Would you be pleased just to sprinkle a little of the water of your glance upon me? That will be great. That will be a great satisfaction. The next quotation on page 306 also exemplify Dainya. And Vyabhichari Bhavs of Ut Kantitva is reverential servitude continues into the next chapter, which we will cover. So that brings us to the end of this wonderful chapter describing the uh, qualities that is experienced by those who are serving Krishna in the mood of reverence. And we find that the Lord arranges all these different levels of rasas for every different type of devotee. Everyone has a place. Krishna is the Supreme Father. Krishna is Rasaraj. Uh, all living entities are related to Krishna, but they're not all related in the same way. They are related in different rasas, and Krishna facilitates all these different rasas and experiences all these different rasas. So, for us, this level of service is key. Reverential service is key, at least to get a footing on the path of bhakti. And as we progress, then the doors of greater reciprocation will open up according to Krishna's desire and according to our eternal relationship with Krishna. We don't need to artificially desire, but what we can desire is the foundational principles of trying to please Krishna, trying to be eager to serve Krishna. And as we intensify these traits and qualities, then the spiritual world becomes open and becomes more and more real in this practice of spiritual life, Krishna consciousness. So thank you very much. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Are there any questions that anyone has? You can just type them in the chat room or in the WhatsApp. I'll give you a minute or two. Otherwise, we will end. Okay, so there's no questions. Thank you very much. Srila Prabhupada ki jai.